Welcome to your UPSC News Analysis for May 5th, 2025. We've sifted through the day's headlines to bring you the core current affairs, clarify essential concepts, and really pinpoint what's crucial for your mains preparation.
Exactly. Our aim today is a thorough discussion of each topic, always keeping, that Indian perspective right at the forefront.
And today, we're diving into quite a mix, everything from a missile attack in Tel Aviv to debates on the governor's role here in India, and even some advancements in agricultural technology. So let's get started.
Sounds good. It's definitely a diverse set of issues which really reflects the multifaceted nature of governance and global events relevant for understanding India's position.
Let's jump straight into a significant international development then. This Houthi missile strike near Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport. Now, just to get a clearer picture, can you outline who the Houthi rebels are and why this particular airport is so strategically important?
Sure. The Houthi rebels, well, they're a Zaidi Shia Muslim group based in Yemen. They've been central to Yemen's long civil war and have a history of regional actions, often with backing from Iran.
Right.
Their targets have increasingly included adversaries like Saudi Arabia and, as we see now, Israel, missiles and drones, and Ben Gurion International Airport. It's near Tel Aviv. It's Israel's largest international gateway. Its significance lies in being the key entry and exit point for both civilian and strategic purposes.
And this incident happens against a backdrop of already really high tensions in the Middle East, doesn't it? What's the broader context we need to keep in mind?
Precisely. The escalation of the Israel-Hamas conflict back in October 2023 has really acted as a catalyst, intensifying regional dynamics. We've seen more activity from various Iran-aligned groups, Hezbollah, for instance, along the Lebanese border, and, the Houthis in Yemen. They seem to be projecting power, challenging Israeli and allied interests.
So this attack near Ben Gurion is just another layer in that complex picture. So paint us a picture of what actually happened with this missile. What were the immediate consequences on the ground?
Okay, so on Sunday, which we're placing around May 4th, 2025 for our timeline, a Houthi missile landed near Ben Gurion Airport. This resulted in injuries to 6 people and, understandably, caused quite a bit of disruption. Operations were temporarily suspended.
Wow.
And what's really relevant for us in India is that an Air India flight coming from New Delhi actually had to be diverted to Abu Dhabi because of this.
That diversion really brings the global impact home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What was Israel's immediate reaction, and what was the initial response from our side, from India?
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu quickly vowed a strong response, hinting at, potential escalation. The military also mobilized reserve forces, likely for operations in Gaza.
Yeah.
India's immediate action was, of course, rerouting that Air India flight standard safety procedure in volatile airspace. And the Ministry of External Affairs typically issues advisories for such regions to keep Indian citizens informed about risks.
Now, thinking through the UTSC main syllabus, what are the critical issues and potential impacts that this Houthi attack brings up?
Several key themes pop up for mains. First, it really underscores the danger of regional conflicts widening, pulling in more actors, potentially destabilizing the whole Middle East.
Right.
Second, it raises questions about the effectiveness of even sophisticated defenses like Israel's Iron Dome. It suggests vulnerabilities maybe to new missile tech or tactics. And third, the location near a major civilian airport brings up the grave issue of civilian safety in conflict zones and, international humanitarian law.
And beyond those immediate security concerns, what are the wider diplomatic and economic ripples we should be thinking about?
Diplomatically, this complicates already strained relationships, Israel, Yemen, Iran. It also puts India in a challenging position given our interests across the region. We need that careful balancing act. Security-wise, it highlights risks to air travel and amplifies geopolitical instability in West Asia. Economically, disrupting a hub like Ben Gurion affects trade, tourism, confidence. It all cascades.
So finally, as UPSC aspirants, what should be our analytical approach here? The way forward in our understanding, and maybe some prelims pointers.
It's vital to think about de-escalation pathways, diplomacy, mediation, maybe UN involvement investigation, peacekeeping. For India, ensuring the safety of our nationals and assets is key while maintaining diplomatic neutrality. We also need to consider global air safety, early warnings, contingency plans.
Okay.
And for prelims, definitely note Ben Gurion's location and significance, Houthi origins, backers, tactics, the Iron Dome's purpose and limits, the Air India diversion significance, and the current Mideast tensions context.
Got it. Okay, let's turn our attention now to a domestic issue that sparked quite a bit of discussion. The Janavara controversy at a NEET exam center in Karnataka. For those maybe not fully aware, could you explain what a Janavara is and why exam regulations like NEETs are so strict?
Sure. The Janavara, also called Yajanopavita or sacred thread, holds deep religious meaning for many Hindu men, especially after the Upanayana ceremony. It symbolizes spiritual initiation.
Right.
Now, NEET, UG, the National Medical Entrance Test, is hugely competitive. So to maintain fairness and prevent cheating, it has very strict guidelines dress code, thorough frisking.
So could you detail what exactly happened at this NEET center in Kalaburagi?
Okay, the incident was on May 5th, 2024, at St. Mary's PU College in Kalaburagi. A candidate, Shripad Sudhir Patil, was allegedly told to remove his Janavara before entering the hall.
Oh, dear.
He reportedly complied, maybe under pressure, to avoid missing the exam, but he later said this caused him significant mental distress, which he believes led him to make a mistake on his answer sheet with his registration number.
That sounds incredibly stressful for a student already under immense pressure. What was the immediate reaction?
It led to immediate protests. Brahmin community groups, the ABVP, other Hindu organizations, they demonstrated at the center, blocked roads sometimes, even held a public ceremony to sort of reinstate the thread symbolically.
Wow.
Police had to intervene. Exam officials acknowledged it, identified the staff involved, and mentioned a possible FIR if a written complaint comes in. And importantly, this isn't isolated. Similar issues with religious attire happened during Karnataka's CET exams recently, too.
So what are the official guidelines regarding religious attire in exams like NEET? And what steps might the government or NTA take now?
Well, the NTA, which runs NEET, does have a dress code. It prohibits jewelry, metallic items, sometimes even threads. But, the wording can be open to interpretation, leading to inconsistencies.
Like ambiguity.
Exactly. The frisking SOPs are often given by outsourced agencies and might lack specific, sensitive guidance on handling things like a Janavara. So, in response, the Karnataka government might review its protocols. The NTA might also reconsider its guidelines, maybe issue clear instructions or exemptions after consulting religious leaders. We've seen precedents like the earlier hijab controversy in Karnataka's institutions, which even went to court.
From a UPSC mains perspective, what are the central issues and challenges this Janavara row highlights?
It really brings into focus that delicate balance, doesn't it? Respecting religious sensitivity is a fundamental constitutional tenet versus ensuring exam integrity. There seems to be a lack of clear, consistently applied guidelines.
Yeah.
Plus, it raises questions about training and sensitizing outsourced staff doing the frisking, and we absolutely must consider the psychological impact on students, potentially affecting their performance unfairly.
What are the broader social, administrative, and maybe legal, ethical dimensions here?
Socially, unfortunately, incidents like this can worsen existing religious or caste sensitivities. Administratively, it puts pressure on exam bodies to review protocols thoroughly. Legally and ethically, it touches on Article 25, freedom of religion, and how that right balances within institutional settings like exams.
Yeah.
There are also governance concerns. The need for standardized, sensitive guidelines, especially when outsourcing is involved in public interest exams.
So what could be some effective ways forward? How do we prevent this in the future?
Clear, unambiguous SOPs are crucial from NTA, state boards on religious symbols. Mandatory sensitivity training for all exam staff, including outsourced ones, is essential.
Definitely.
Easy access to grievance redressal helplines, designated officials on exam day itself could help. Legal clarification, maybe through courts if needed, could provide clearer lines. And finally, student protection, perhaps re-exams or special consideration for verified trauma cases.
Okay.
And for prelims, remember Article 25, NTA as the NEET body, Janavara meaning CET versus NEET difference, and Kalaburagi's location.
Got it. Our next deep dive takes us to the Western Ghats, a fascinating look at how coffee agroforests can help with ecological restoration. What's the basic idea here?
It's a really promising area where agriculture meets conservation. Agroforestry broadly integrates trees with crops or livestock for mutual benefits, ecological and economic. In India, especially in the biodiversity-rich Western Ghats, coffee is often shade-grown under native trees. These coffee agroforests, if managed well, can be habitats. Ecological restoration is about helping degraded ecosystems recover, often using native species, and the Western Ghats. a global biodiversity hotspot, vital for India's ecological security.
So how are these coffee agroforests specifically helping restoration efforts there?
Well, a recent study by the Nature Conservation Foundation, NCF, and coffee estate owners in Chikmagaluru and Hassan found something interesting. These agroforests act as repositories of native plants and, importantly, as sources of native seeds for restoration.
Really, how so?
The key finding is that many estates harbor diverse, indigenous, even endemic trees in their shade canopy. Seeds from these trees germinate naturally, but the seedlings often get weeded out during routine maintenance because, they're not the coffee crop.
That's quite an insight. So what practical steps are being taken with this knowledge?
Based on this, they launched a pilot project. Between 2023-24, they collected around 18,000 seeds and seedlings of 56 native tree species from these estates.
Wow, 18,000.
Yes. And they've set up 2 nurseries with estate owner support to propagate these native plants for local restoration projects. The initial survey found over 90 native tree species, including some threatened endemics. The future plan linked these seed-rich estates with Karnataka Forest Department nurseries to really scale up restoration efforts.
Are there existing government programs or policies that support this kind of work?
Yes, several. The Karnataka Forest Department already runs nurseries, potential partners. Nationally, the National Agroforestry Policy 2014 promotes integrating trees. The Green India Mission focuses on enhancing forest cover and restoring degraded lands with native species.
Okay.
Plus, the Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel, WGEP, recommendations emphasize sustainable practices in sensitive zones, which this aligns with perfectly.
Thinking about Maines again, what are the major challenges and conversely the potential advantages of using coffee agroforests this way?
Historically, a big challenge was the loss of native plants due to monocultures or sometimes misguided afforestation using exotic species. We've seen examples where that backfired ecologically. Getting ethically sourced native seeds from natural forests can also be tough due to existing pressures. And nursery infrastructure might not always be equipped for diverse native species propagation.
But the upsides?
Huge potential benefits. Ecologically, these estates can be biodiversity refuges, seed banks, providing habitat for fauna like frugivores.
Right.
Promoting shade-grown coffee leads to more sustainable agriculture. Environmentally, it enhances carbon sequestration, helping climate mitigation. Socioeconomically, diversified livelihoods through carbon biodiversity credits, maybe even ecotourism.
Are there ethical or governance issues that crop up with these public-private partnerships in restoration?
Absolutely. Ensuring equitable access and benefits, especially for smallholder farmers, is crucial. They might lack resources or know-how. We need transparent, inclusive governance models for these partnerships, prioritizing ecological goals alongside economic interests. Land tenure and local community rights also need careful thought.
So what are the key steps needed to really scale this up effectively across the Malenadu region and maybe even beyond?
Institutional support is key. Formal public-private partnership frameworks defining roles. Certification and incentives may be eco-labels to reward biodiversity-friendly farming.
Makes sense.
Ecological training for farmers on identifying, collecting, propagating local native species is essential for ecological integrity. Continuous research and monitoring to track success, carbon impact, fauna return. And then, based on pilot lessons, strategic plans to scale up across Malenadu and other suitable zones.
Okay.
For prelims, note NCF's role, Malenadu region significance, shade coffee concept, frugivore's ecological role, restoration nursery's purpose, and the importance of endemic species.
All right, our next topic shifts to that often contentious relationship between state governments and governors. We've seen recent criticism from Tamil Nadu CM M.K. Stalin questioning the post's relevance. Can you start by outlining the governor's basic constitutional role?
Okay, the governor is the constitutional head of a state, appointed by the president, usually on the center's advice. Crucially, Article 163 says they generally act on the advice of the state's Council of Ministers.
Right, that's the theory.
Articles 153 to 162 detail their powers, and Article 200 is key. It deals with assent to bills passed by the state legislature, including reserving them for the president. The term rubber stamp is, well, often used negatively for figureheads seen as just approving decisions.
And the current context in Tamil Nadu.
It involves ongoing friction between Governor R.N. Ravi and the state government over things like delays in bill assent and disagreements over vice chancellor appointments in state universities.
So what specific criticisms did Chief Minister Stalin voice, and what seemed to trigger this particular instance?
CM Stalin publicly criticized the governor's role quite strongly, calling it a mere rubber stamp and questioning its democratic legitimacy. He said this at a Chennai event. The immediate trigger appears to be a recent Supreme Court judgment that actually favored the Tamil Nadu government regarding bills pending with the governor, especially those on VC appointments.
Ah, the court ruling.
Yes, he directly asked, why conduct elections if governors block public welfare schemes? And asserted the supremacy of state assemblies in the federal structure.
What specific legal or political actions have the Supreme Court and the TN government taken? What's the union government's usual stance?
The Supreme Court's 2024 ruling was significant. It reiterated that governors must act on bills within a reasonable time, cautioning against indefinite delays. It even set a deadline for the pending TN bills. The TN government has taken a firm legal stance, challenging perceived interference, especially in higher education, seeking judicial remedies for state autonomy. The union government, on the other hand, has generally tended to back governors in such disputes, often leading to more federal tension, especially in opposition-ruled states.
This really highlights the delicate, sometimes strained nature of federalism in India. From a Maine's perspective, what are the core issues and challenges this debate throws up?
It starkly illustrates what many see as a challenge to federalism, that contested power balance between center-appointed governors and elected state governments. It raises questions about state autonomy when laws can be delayed indefinitely.
And the neutrality aspect.
Exactly. Concerns about the political neutrality of governors are front and center. They're often accused of acting partisanly, aligning with the center's ruling party, despite the expectation of impartiality.
What are the tangible impacts of such friction on governance itself and the broader political scene?
The impact can be quite substantial. Delayed bill assent stalls policy implementation, hindering the elected government. Disputes over appointments, like VCs, disrupt institutions. And we're seeing more judicial intervention, with states turning to courts to resolve these conflicts.
What about the key ethical and governance considerations here?
Significant ethical questions about the constitutional morality expected of governors. Their role is to uphold the Constitution, not be agents of the center or obstruct elected governments politically. It also touches on democratic accountability when unelected appointees can potentially undermine the people's will.
Looking ahead, what are some potential ways to address these recurring issues and maybe foster a more harmonious center-state relationship regarding the governor?
Several reforms could be considered. Clearer guidelines and timelines for governors acting on bills under Article 200. Reforming the appointment process, maybe mandatory consultation with chief ministers.
That's often suggested.
Strengthening intergovernmental communication and dispute resolution mechanisms. Enhanced judicial guidance on the governor's discretionary powers, especially on withholding assent. And perhaps greater state autonomy in university administration, like VC appointments, could reduce friction points for prelims. Remember Article 200, Articles 154 and 163, Sarkaria Commission recommendations on the governor's role, and key aspects of that 2024 Supreme Court ruling.
Got it. Our next discussion focuses on the Arctic region and the argument that India needs to, well, rethink its outlook there, perhaps be more assertive. For those new to this, what's the fundamental importance of the Arctic and what has India's engagement been like so far?
The Arctic region north of the Arctic Circle includes the Arctic Ocean and parts of 8 countries. Its increasingly important, globally vast, untapped resources, crucial role in climate systems, and growing accessibility due to climate change opening up routes like the Northern Sea Route, NSR.
That's the potential shorter shipping route, right?
Exactly. Along Russia's coast, potentially shortening Asia-Europe sea journeys significantly. The Arctic Council is the key intergovernmental forum. India has observer status. India also released its Arctic policy in 2022, primarily focused on science, environment, sustainable development, and studying links between the Arctic and the Himalayas, the third pole.
So what are the major geopolitical shifts happening in the Arctic that are prompting this call for India to rethink its approach?
The Arctic is rapidly changing from a mainly scientific research zone to one of increasing geopolitical competition. We're seeing military buildup, strategic rivalry, Russia, China, US, and intensifying competition for resources and control over routes like the NSR.
And India's current strategy?
The argument is that India's current focus on climate and science diplomacy might not be enough for these strategic realities. There are concerns India could be marginalized in new Arctic governance for shipping, resources, digital infrastructure. The NSR's potential impact on India's traditional maritime strategy is also a big factor. Plus, the growing Russia-China strategic partnership in the Arctic could spill over into the Indo-Pacific. And India's stance on Ukraine might affect relations with Nordic Arctic nations.
What specific government initiatives does India currently undertake in the Arctic? And where are the identified gaps in its strategy?
India's 2022 Arctic policy outlines priorities: scientific understanding, environmental protection, sustainable development, strengthening cooperation. We operate the Himadri Research Station in Svalbard and participate in Arctic Council working groups.
And initiatives like Sagar.
Yes, India has Sagar and the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative for Maritime Security, but they currently lack a strong integrated Arctic focus. The key gap identified is the lack of a comprehensive institutional strategic framework for the Arctic beyond environmental concerns, one that includes diplomatic, security, and economic dimensions more assertively.
From a UPSC mains perspective, what are the critical issues, potential challenges, and likely impacts if India doesn't strategically recalibrate its Arctic approach?
Well, if India sticks mainly to science, it risks strategic inertia being left behind as the Arctic becomes more contested. The growing military presence and the China-Russia Arctic alliance could challenge India's long-term interests if we don't adapt.
Being sidelined.
Yes, exclusion from developing norms for Arctic activities, shipping, resources, digital infrastructure. While environment is vital, a passive stance on hard security and economics could hurt broader strategic goals.
And the impacts.
Security-wise, Arctic militarization could indirectly affect Indian Ocean dynamics. The NSR could alter trade routes, impacting India's shipping role. Diplomatically, a less assertive presence weakens our voice. And crucially, climate links or direct Arctic changes affect India's monsoon, Himalayan glaciers, sea level.
So what are the essential steps India needs to take to rethink and strengthen its Arctic outlook given these dynamics?
A strategic recalibration is needed. Strengthening institutional capacity, maybe dedicated Arctic desks in MEA, defense, better interagency coordination across climate, trade, defense, space. Actively pursuing dual-use collaborations with Arctic states monitoring, maritime awareness, logistics, science. Asserting our interests more actively in Arctic governance platforms for shipping, digital standards, blue economy, while engaging ethically with local communities.
So balancing autonomy with assertiveness.
Exactly. Reassuring partners of our commitment to a rules-based order, but being more present and multifaceted in our engagement. For prelims, understand the NSR's strategic significance, Himadri Station location purpose, Svalbard, Arctic Council members and India's observer status, Arctic policy focus areas, and the third pole concept.
Understood. Our next topic examines a complex socio-political issue within Karnataka: the process of counting castes among Dalits, tied to a new caste survey and the internal reservation debate. Let's start with definitions. What are scheduled castes, and what does internal reservation mean here?
Okay. Scheduled castes, SCs, are a constitutionally recognized group of historically marginalized castes entitled to affirmative action reservation to address historical inequality. Internal reservation means subclassifying the broader SC category to ensure reservation benefits are distributed more equitably among the constituent subcastes.
And this is sensitive in Karnataka.
Very. There's a long-standing discourse between groups often called Dalit left, mainly Madigas, arguing they're more backward underrepresented, and Dalit right, mainly Holiyas, sometimes seen as benefiting more. Adding complexity is the nomenclature issue. Terms like Adi Karnataka can blur lines. Currently, Karnataka has 17% SC reservation for 101 listed communities.
So what's the latest news from Karnataka about this new caste survey? What are its specific goals?
Karnataka has started a new caste survey specifically focused on internal SC reservation. It began Monday, which we can assume is May 5th, 2025, the immediate trigger. A Supreme Court verdict in August 2024 allowing states to subcategorize SC reservations based on empirical data.
Ah, the SC ruling again.
Exactly. The survey's main goal is to get reliable data on population size and socioeconomic educational backwardness of various SC subcastes to inform a more equitable division of that 17% quota. It's being done by a commission under retired Justice H.N. Nagmohan Das.
Has this been tried before?
Yes, this isn't the first attempt. The 2015 C survey was never officially released. Recommendations from the 2012 A.J. Sadashiva Commission weren't implemented either. Recent BJP government attempts before the 2023 elections faced backlash. Importantly, the state has paused public recruitment until these new internal quotas are finalized based on this survey.
What existing legal framework or government actions paved the way for this specific focus on internal reservation for SCs?
The Supreme Court's 2024 verdict was critical. It legally enabled subclassification by states using empirical data. The Karnataka government itself has commissioned multiple surveys, 2012, 2015, now 2024, to study conditions. The recruitment pause shows intent to use this data, and historically, those broad terms like Adi Karnataka, Adi Dravida from colonial Mysore times have complicated accurate identification.
From a Maine's perspective, what are the key issues and challenges in counting castes within the Dalit community and implementing internal reservation?
Several big ones. First, recognizing intra-SC inequity that benefits haven't reached all subcastes equally. Second, data accuracy, historical ambiguities, different names for communities make enumeration hard.
Politics must play a role too.
Hugely. It's politically sensitive, potential backlash from dominant SC subcastes who might lose out, and other caste groups. And finally, legal uncertainty, despite the SC ruling. Past hurdles like the E.V. Chennaiya case show potential for future legal challenges.
What are the potential impacts if internal reservation is successfully implemented? And what ethical or governance concerns need careful thought?
If done well, based on good data, it could enhance social justice, ensuring benefits reach the most marginalized within SCs. It could enable more targeted welfare schemes.
But the risks?
Risk of exacerbating social tensions, creating divisions among SC subcastes. Ethically, it's about balancing the needs of the most backward without creating new exclusions or undermining broader SC solidarity. Transparency in the whole process data collection to quotas is vital for trust. And the recruitment halt, while aiming for future fairness, ethically delays opportunities now.
So what are the crucial steps to ensure this process moves forward effectively and achieves its goals of greater equity?
Transparent, rigorous enumeration is vital, using original, specific caste names, not broad terms. The whole process, data, analysis, quotas, restarting recruitment, needs to be time-bound to avoid prolonged uncertainty.
Right.
Institutionalizing the sub-quota mechanism via a clear legal framework could avoid repeated surveys and legal fights. Balancing political will with social equity principles, decisions driven by data, not just politics, is crucial. And public awareness campaigns explaining the rationale and methodology can help foster understanding and reduce friction. For prelims, remember internal reservation definition purpose, Justice H.N. Nagmohan Das Commission, Article 341 relevance, the 2024 SC verdict implications, and Karnataka's current SC quota percentage, 17%.
Understood. Our next topic involves a sensitive intersection: national security and personal life, the dismissal of a CRPF Jawan for marrying his Pakistani cousin. Let's start with the basics. The CRPF and the general rules for personnel regarding marriage, especially to foreign nationals.
Okay, the CRPF Central Reserve Police Force is one of India's largest paramilitary forces under the Ministry of Home Affairs, focused on internal security. Given their sensitive duties, service conduct rules typically require mandatory disclosure of all marriages, especially involving foreign nationals.
Understandable security concern.
Yes, particularly with individuals from countries with complex or adversarial relations with India, like Pakistan. The partition context is also relevant: split families across the border, leading to occasional cross-border marriages within families, which agencies view with sensitivity.
So who is the CRPF Jawan in question, and what were the specific reasons cited for his dismissal?
The Jawan is Munir Ahmad from the 72nd Battalion. The stated reason for dismissal is that he allegedly concealed his online marriage to his cousin, a Pakistani national, which reportedly happened in May 2023. His wife later visited India in February 2024 on a short-term visa and then applied for a long-term one.
What's the Jawan side of the story? Does he claim he followed the rules?
Yes. According to reports, Munir Ahmad claims he did inform his CRPF superiors at every stage: marriage, wife's visa. He says he submitted photos, his nikah, marriage certificate, visa copies, other correspondence. He contends his dismissal is unjust and is seeking legal recourse in Jammu.
And his argument?
He's arguing for recognition of his marriage and family reunification, highlighting the shared family history split by partition.
What specific government regulations or procedures usually apply in cases of marriage between Indian security personnel and Pakistani nationals?
Well, there are defined service conduct rules needing prior permission and full disclosure for marrying foreign nationals, with stricter rules for countries like Pakistan. Visa regulations for Pakistani origin spouses involve rigorous MHMEA clearances. And security agencies like CRPF have protocols to review personnel with cross-border ties for potential vulnerabilities.
From a Maine's perspective, What are the key issues and challenges this particular case brings up?
It starkly highlights that tension between individual human rights, like the right to marry, and national security imperatives, especially for those in sensitive security roles.
Definitely a tough balance.
It also underscores the enduring legacies of partition and the complexities families face seeking cross-border reunification. And it raises questions about transparency and due process and dismissals. Was he given a fair chance? Was dismissal proportionate?
What are the potential emotional and social consequences for those involved, and the broader implications for legal and administrative procedures?
Personally, it can cause immense distress for the Joan, his wife, their families navigating these complex ties. Legally and administratively, it tests the effectiveness and fairness of service rules, how clearly they're enforced. How such cases are handled impacts morale and trust within forces, too.
What about the ethical considerations, and what might be a more balanced way forward?
Ethically, concerns arise about potential bias in applying rules, especially regarding specific nationalities. Was it just procedural or other factors? Transparency and a fair hearing are fundamental ethical needs.
So moving forward.
Ensure due process in dismissals, adhering to natural justice. CRPF should clarify protocols for marrying foreign nationals to remove ambiguity. For marriages with Pakistanis, especially with pre-partition family links, maybe a careful, sensitive case-by-case assessment balancing security and humanitarian aspects is better. Independent judicial oversight on proportionality could add fairness. Where risks are low, a more humanitarian approach to family ties under safeguards could be explored. Prelims points. CRPF, full form, partition's impact on families, requirements for marrying Pakistani nationals, NICA definition.
Got it. Our next topic shifts to internal security, the center's recent firm stance against peace talks with Maoist insurgents unless they surrender first. Let's start with the basics. CPI, Maoist, Naxalism, and the government's current counter-strategy elements.
Right. The CPI, Maoist, is a banned, far-left extremist group advocating armed struggle to overthrow the state. Naxalism is the broader Maoist-inspired movement, often an armed insurgency rooted in historical grievances, land rights, social justice, especially affecting tribal communities.
And the government's approach.
It's multifaceted. Operation Kagar is a recent targeted counterinsurgency op in Telangana. There are also surrender and rehabilitation policies to encourage cadres to reintegrate.
So what exactly did the union minister say that signals this hardening stance against talks without preconditions?
Union Minister of State for Home, Bandi Sanjay Kumar, recently stated definitively, no peace talks with Maoists unless they first surrender their weapons. He said this near Karimnagar, Telangana, likely around May 4th.
And this was in response to?
Direct response to recent statements by Telangana CM Revanth Reddy suggesting a social developmental lens for the issue, and also reported calls from BRS leader KCR to halt Operation Kagar. Minister Kumar also criticized past Congress and BRS approaches, alleging failures despite loss of life due to Maoist violence.
What are the existing government interventions and policy frameworks currently in place to tackle Maoist insurgency?
The CPI, Maoist, is banned under UAPA. The MHA uses the Samadan Doctrine, a multi-pronged strategy covering security, development, infrastructure, intelligence, rights, action. There are surrender-cum-rehabilitation policies offering assistance to surrendered cadres, and the Aspirational Districts program targets socioeconomic development in LWE-affected areas to address root causes.
From a Maine's perspective, what are the key issues and challenges arising from this firm surrender-first stance?
Well, the central debate is Maoism primarily a security threat needing force, or rooted in socioeconomic issues needing dialogue? Ruling out talks first might close doors for engaging factions potentially open to peace, possibly escalating conflict.
And the development aspect.
Yes, the persistent lack of development in many tribal regions, often cited as fueling Maoist support, remains a huge challenge needing parallel focus alongside security ops.
What are the potential impacts of this firm stance on politics and governance in affected states, and any ethical concerns?
It can worsen center-state tensions if states prefer different approaches, like we see with Telangana. Human rights concerns often arise during intense counterinsurgency ops impacting civilians. The issue gets highly politicized, hindering a consensus national strategy.
Ethically.
The debate is whether the state's prime duty is eliminating insurgents by force or understanding grievances and offering democratic engagement. The surrender precondition might seem to prioritize a military solution over exploring peaceful resolution.
So what could be a more comprehensive, potentially sustainable way forward?
perhaps exploring structured dialogue with some factions, maybe after initial confidence-building measures, not a blanket surrender first. Simultaneously, a massive, sustained focus on grassroots development in tribal regions, land forest rights, PDS, education, health, livelihoods.
And the surrender policy.
Revamp it. Make packages more transparent, relevant, supportive of long-term reintegration. Building police-citizen trust is essential sensitizing forces, involving locals in peace building. Ultimately, a lasting solution probably needs bipartisan political consensus on a national strategy focusing on long-term development and inclusive governance. For prelims, CPI, Maoist details, Operation Kagar, Samatan components, current LWE status, surrender policy features.
Okay, our penultimate topic focuses on digital integration in India's elections. The ECI's Unified Digital Platform, SNet. Can you explain the concept and why it's being done?
Sure. The ECI, Election Commission of India constitutional body under Article 324 for free fair elections, has developed many digital tools over years. Voter helpline app, CVIGL for reporting violations, Suvidha for candidates, etc.
But they were all separate.
Exactly. SNet aims to integrate these maybe 40-plus existing apps and portals into one single platform for voters, officials, parties, civil society. The rationale: streamline access, boost efficiency, improve data management, provide a seamless experience for everyone in the electoral ecosystem.
So what key features will SNet offer? And where is it in terms of development?
It's envisioned as a one-stop shop. Key features include unified login, one credential for multiple services, intuitive user interface across devices, real-time authenticated data entry for ECI staff.
Sounds ambitious.
It is. It's reportedly in advanced development, undergoing trials, big focus on robust cybersecurity to protect sensitive electoral data, and making it accessible to all, regardless of tech skills. It's designed ultimately for nearly 100 core electors and the vast admin network.
How does this fit with the government's broader digital goals? And what other tech initiatives has ECI taken before?
It clearly aligns with the Digital India mission, using tech for better governance, transparency, citizen empowerment. ECI has a strong track record. AeroNet for electoral rolls, CV EGOL app for citizen reporting, EVMs with VVPATs. Cybersecurity for SNet is top priority, building on existing protocols.
From a mains perspective, what are the potential benefits and, crucially, the challenges of implementing such a huge, unified platform in a country as diverse as India?
Benefits are considerable. Huge admin efficiency for officials, better accessibility for voters' registration, status checks, polling stations, grievances, info. Parties get streamlined access to data. Civil society could leverage it too.
But the challenges?
Significant ones. The digital divide: many lack internet access or digital literacy. Data privacy and security are paramount, needing robust safeguards. Potential user overload, if not intuitive. And securing the whole infrastructure against cyber threats is absolutely critical for election integrity.
So what steps are needed to ensure SNet is successful, widely adopted, and effective across India?
Comprehensive digital literacy campaigns targeting rural areas, seniors, first-time voters, rigorous, independent cybersecurity audits regularly, multilingual, accessible design for varying literacy disability needs, robust feedback mechanisms for continuous improvement, and crucially integrating it with existing offline support systems for inclusivity.
Okay. For
prelims, SNet's purpose integration scope, Article 324 significance, SC Vigil app function, SNet's alignment with Digital India.
Got it. Our final deep dive today looks at an innovative approach integrating farming and solar power. Agrophotovoltaics, or APVs. Can you explain the basic concept and its main advantages?
Agrophotovoltaics, APVs, basically co-locate solar power generation and farming on the same land. Usually, solar panels are installed on elevated structures high enough for sunlight to reach crops growing underneath while generating electricity.
Dual use, essentially.
Exactly. The main advantages are significant. First, potential dual income for farmers from crops and selling solar power. Second, efficient land use, food, and energy from the same plot. Third, climate resilience panels offer shade, reduce water evaporation, potentially even boost yields in some conditions.
What's the current status of APVs in India, and what's driving the recommendation for wider use?
Currently, India lacks a dedicated national policy or specific technical standards for APVs. While we have the PMQSUM scheme for farmers' solar energy, it doesn't explicitly support these elevated dual-use APV models comprehensively.
So there's a gap.
Yes. A recent ICARIA report strongly highlights the potential economic and environmental benefits for India's agriculture and recommends integrating APVs into national policies. It cites case studies, like a Najafgarh farmer whose income jumped significantly after leasing land for APVs. The report even suggests potential income could multiply if crop sharing is included.
What's holding it back then?
Main bottlenecks are the high initial capital costs compared to conventional solar and the lack of attractive enough feed-in tariffs, FITs, for the electricity generated.
So what specific policy interventions could the government take to promote APVs?
Several key things. Integrate APVs specifically into PMQ's grid-connected part, with guidelines and incentives for elevated dual-use structures ensuring farming continues below.
Financial support.
Essential. NABARD could offer concessional credit guarantees, soft loans to farmers' FPOs, and perhaps most importantly, implementing attractive, stable feed-in tariffs. iCrier suggests at least 4.52 per unit would significantly improve economic viability.
From a Maine's perspective, what are the primary issues and challenges needing attention to unlock APV potential?
Yeah.
The broader implications, economic, environmental, energy security.
High upfront costs are a big barrier, needing financial support. The policy standards vacuum creates uncertainty. Ensuring small marginal farmer inclusion is critical.
But if we overcome these,
potential benefits are substantial. Economically, big boost to farmer incomes. Environmentally, reduced water use, lower emissions, better climate resilience. Energy security-wise, contributes to renewable targets, decentralized rural power, energy independence.
are there ethical or governance considerations we need to keep in mind?
Yeah.
And what's the key way forward?
Yes. Ensure land leasing doesn't displace food production permanently. Protect farmer rights. In private projects, ensure farmers get fair compensation, maybe benefit from crop output too.
So the path ahead involves
Creating clear national APV standards, learning from Japan, Germany on yield retention, panel height. Revamp PMQSUM to explicitly include and incentivize dual-use APVs. Provide robust financial support grants, subsidies, loans via NABARD FPOs, dynamic fits, and capacity-building farmer training, promoting FPO-led ownership to help smallholders adopt this promising tech.
Okay.
Prelims points, APV definition features, PMQSUM components, current versus needed fit, APV standards abroad, Japan, Germany, iCrier's role.
That covers a lot of ground.
Indeed. It's fascinating, isn't it, how interconnected these seemingly disparate issues are, all part of the larger picture of governance, society, and India's place in the world.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Remember to subscribe for daily updates and do drop a comment to share your thoughts on these topics. You can also download the audio or transcript for revision. Jai Hind.